Welcome to Visual Literacy, a series of YouTube videos based on the Visual Literacy Workbook for Graphic Design and Fine Art students by David Moyer and Brian Flynn, published by Oxford University Press. Chapter 3, Gestalt, Unity, and Variety. In this chapter, we will be looking at the relationship of the visual image to the parts of which it is composed. Our investigation will be based on the Gestalt psychology of perception, its central tenets being that our mind understands the data we perceive through our five senses as a unity of parts, or whole, rather than random bits of unrelated information. We see a whole image before we see its individual parts. Gestalt, defined as the whole is different than the sum of its parts, organizes visual information, grouping together like elements and completing missing parts of visual information. Images not possessing unity of its parts are poorly perceived by the viewer, while those with an overabundance of agreement between its parts are tedious to see. Neither will hold the viewer's attention. Repetition, or the iteration of design elements, contribute to the unity of visual composition. Alternating rhythms consist of elements that repeat with unchanging regularity. Progressive rhythms consist of regular repeating elements that change with each occurrence. Integrative repetitions are non-rhythmic occurrences of design elements or portions of the design elements that lend commonality to different parts of the picture plane. The five principles of Gestalt are unity, proximity, similarity, continuation, and closure. As previously mentioned, unity is the agreement between individual design elements to form a whole image. Agreement is the likeness of design elements to one another. Too much likeness can make a design dull or over-unified. Variety is the introduction of difference in design elements to provide relief from too much sameness or over-unity. Proximity is the spatial distance between design elements. Gestalt creates visual organization by grouping a picture's parts. The distance between the design elements also plays a role in establishing continuation of design elements on a common visual pathway or suggested line. Continuation can be created by a line connecting design elements in a picture plane or by the suggestion of a line through the alignment of the edges or major axis of unconnected forms. Closure is the completeness of visual information in the perception of the design elements that form an image. The image on the left is composed of black rectilinear shapes on a white ground. Their chaotic arrangement does not present the viewer with a unified design, providing the observer with little visual interest. The adjacent design is composed of the same black figures on a white ground, though with a different arrangement. The five aspects of Gestalt have been at work in their placement. The repeating rectangles in the lower left-hand quadrant of the picture plane have been placed in close proximity to one another. The repetition from thin to thick creates a progressive rhythm. The close proximity of the repeating shapes aligning at the top edge of the forms makes, through continuation, a suggested line delineating the top of a diagonal positioned rectangle created by their repeating forms. Our Gestalt's sense of closure enables us to see the space between the black rectangles as repeating white rectangles. Two large black triangular shapes have also been placed in close proximity with the large diagonal positioned rectangle. The left edge of the triangle in the upper right quadrant of the picture plane is parallel to the top of the large rectangle, allowing our sense of closure to organize the white space between them into a long rectangle with truncated triangles at either end. The apex of the black triangular form in the upper left quadrant of the picture plane is in close proximity to the top left side of the large rectangle, organizing a negative spaced triangle to its right and left. The composition consists of repeating similar black and white triangular and rectangular shapes, imbuing the image with a strong sense of unity and variety. Yashima Gakute's woodblock print, Carp and Pine, is nuanced in its use of color and shape. We see the repetitions of each throughout the image. Fan-shaped repeating scales cover the surface of the carp's body and are seen in variant forms of its fins. as well as the basic configurations of the pine sprigs behind the fish. A dense violet brown gives color to the fish's head and is repeated as a lighter version of the hue in its body, and again in a heavy dense band at the top of the picture plane. The ochre color of the pine sprigs furnishes the highlights in the carp's fins and head and is also seen in the text above the sprigs. The integrative repetition of similar hues and shapes provides the image with pleasing variety in the unification of its parts. Please join us as we continue to explore visual form and content in upcoming videos.